Thanks to the success of titles like Broken Age and Shovel Knight, crowdfunding video game development is now a viable option for independent studios. Even still, it only takes a few bad apples to spoil the bunch. And in the world of crowdfunded games, there have been a lot of bad apples. For example, Mighty No. 9. Released in 2016, Mighty No. 9, a spiritual successor to the famous Mega Man series, was one of the highest-profile kickstarted video games in history. Unfortunately, it's also one of the most disappointing.
What? Poppycock!
The original Mega Man and Mega Man X games are considered masterclasses in gameplay and level design. Simply put, Mighty No. 9 is not. Even worse, the old Mega Man franchise had beautiful graphics for the time, particularly in the X series. Mighty No. 9 is just plain ugly, with horrendous voice acting and uninspired cutscenes, despite amassing almost $4 million in pledges from disappointed gamers.
The fate of the entire country hangs in the balance!
Takedown Red Sabre. In March 2012, game designer Christian Allen launched his Kickstarter for Takedown Red Sabre, which he pitched as a spiritual successor to the original Rainbow Six and SWAT 4. He only raised 35% of his goal, however, before he relaunched his campaign with an aggressive last push to make the game a reality, which attracted a former Call of Duty creative strategist to both back and promote the project on Twitter. In its final hours, the project met its goal. 505 Games stepped in to publish the project, and it debuted worldwide for Windows in September 2013. The reviews were harsh. GameSpot, for example, called it tactical trash, writing, "This is a game that should not have been released in its current state, and is certainly not one you should waste your time and money on." The Stomping Land. Created by developer Alex Jig Fundora, the Kickstarter campaign for The Stomping Land, a multiplayer survival game about dinosaurs, was successfully funded shortly after it launched in 2013, with more than 4,000 eager backers pledging more than $100,000 to help bring the game to life. Unfortunately, the game was pronounced dead when a freelance 3D modeler who was working on the project posted a now-deleted explanation on the Stomping Land's official forums in January 2015. More than a month has passed since the day when I received the last reply from Jig. I've sent him 5 messages and haven't got any single reply. If this silence continues, I will stop my participation in TSL. And that's exactly what he did, selling off his models to another developer to cover his expenses. The game was temporarily available via Steam's Early Access program, but ultimately removed. The project now appears totally extinct, along with many backers' hopes for refunds. If you want an entertaining caveman game today, just go play Far Cry Primal.
Dash, Urky Shawi Wafa Dash! Ooha Darsh, Ooha Darsh!
CLANG. In 2012, Snow Crash author Neil Stephenson set out to revolutionize sword-fighting video games with a crowdfunding campaign to bring CLANG to life. Over 9,000 backers were intrigued enough by the game's promise and pledged over $500,000.
It takes a lot of people to make a sword game that doesn't suck.
Then came September 2013's pause button update, in which the CLANG team announced that they had burned through the money already. Anytime a crowdfunded game runs out of money, it's an all but guaranteed death sentence, and CLANG's case was no different. The project's final update came a year later in September 2014. Stevenson announced the project's demise. The prototype was technically innovative, but it wasn't very fun to play. I probably focused too much on historical accuracy and not enough on making it sufficiently fun to attract additional investment. I've decided that it's cleaner and simpler to cut the cord. Game over. You lose. Unsung Story: Tale of the Guardians. The unsung story of Playdeck's Unsung Story, a rich, diverse tactical RPG envisioned by the master of the genre, Yasumi Matsuno, isn't a particularly bright one. With Final Fantasy Tactics Matsuno leading the project, there was a legitimate reason to be excited, so it's understandable that 15,000 backers pledged a whopping $660,000. Unfortunately, months of silence were sporadically interrupted by unimportant updates, unimpressive screenshots, and a disappointing gameplay video. Then came the admission everyone was expecting: Playdeck was running out of money. Playdeck bailed on the project in August 2017, passing on the rights and assets to developer Little Orbit. Never heard of him? Their projects include licensed titles like Kung Fu Panda: Showdown of Legendary Legends and Barbie and Her Sisters: Puppy Rescue. Not exactly Final Fantasy Tactics caliber titles. In February 2018, Little Orbit announced that production would finally begin on Unsung Story in April, more than 4 years after the campaign was announced. Only time will tell if it's worth the wait, the delays, and the disappointment. Thanks for watching. Click the SVG icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.